The weird thing about living in an HOA community is that sometimes it feels like you own your house right up until someone with way too much free time decides they also own a piece of it. And for me, that moment arrived when I found out my private backyard patio, yes, the one attached to my actual house, had somehow been promised away for an HOA community gathering without a single word to me. My name is Ethan Mercer, and I wish I could say this started with one ridiculous misunderstanding, but trust me, it turned into something way messier. What really got me wasn't even the entitlement at first, it was the confidence. The kind of confidence people have when they think nobody will push back. Bro, hearing how this unfolded still blows my mind because what happened next turned a simple patio dispute into neighborhood chaos, unexpected revenge, and a level of malicious compliance I genuinely never saw coming. Ethan Mercer had lived in the neighborhood for almost 4 years, and in HOA time, that apparently meant he was still considered new. The community looked polished from the outside, identical mailboxes, trimmed lawns, decorative trees planted every 10 feet like someone copy-pasted suburban perfection, but beneath that picture-perfect surface sat the kind of neighborhood politics that somehow made office drama feel relaxing. Ethan mostly kept to himself. He worked remotely, paid his fees on time, smiled politely during neighborhood events, and avoided the unofficial sport of gossip whenever possible. His patio, though, was the one thing he genuinely loved about the house. It backed into a quiet shared green space, wrapped with string lights he installed himself, outdoor furniture he spent way too much money on, and a small grill setup that made weekends actually feel worth it. Nothing extravagant, just peaceful. And honestly, in HOA neighborhoods, peaceful feels expensive. The first sign something was off came on a random Thursday afternoon when Ethan walked outside and noticed folding tables stacked near the edge of his fence line. At first, he assumed somebody dropped equipment in the wrong place because HOA contractors were always leaving things where they shouldn't. But then he noticed tiny laminated signs zip-tied to the nearby bushes pointing toward Saturday Patio Social. His patio. Specifically his address. That weird sinking feeling hit instantly. You know the one, where your brain starts trying to rationalize something obviously irrational because surely people cannot be serious. Ethan checked his email expecting maybe some bizarre misunderstanding. Hidden announcement. Calendar error. Anything. Instead, buried between landscaping notices and reminders about parking compliance sat an HOA newsletter describing an exclusive resident mixer hosted in one of our beautiful shared patio access spaces. Shared patio access spaces. Bro, the wording alone should have been a warning sign because people love inventing technical language whenever they're trying to quietly steal something. Then came the sentence that stopped him cold: refreshments and seating would be available at Ethan Mercer's residence patio area. Residence patio area. Not clubhouse. Not communal lawn. Not optional volunteer location. His patio. No one had contacted him. No one had asked. No one had even pretended to ask. And somehow, around 40 residents were expected to casually gather there in less than 2 days. At first Ethan genuinely thought this had to be accidental. Because who confidently schedules strangers onto private property and sends invitations without permission? But after calling the HOA office, things somehow became worse. The receptionist casually mentioned that the HOA social committee chair, Melissa Crane, had approved the space weeks ago. Approved the space. Hearing that phrase almost made Ethan laugh from disbelief. The confidence behind it felt unreal. As if somebody spotted a patio, liked the aesthetic, and mentally upgraded themselves to landlord. Melissa Crane already had a reputation around the neighborhood, though Ethan hadn't paid much attention before. She sat on 3 HOA committees despite nobody understanding what any of them actually accomplished. She somehow inserted herself into disputes involving garbage bins, paint colors, parking lines, and holiday decorations with the energy of someone defending national security. That's exactly how people act in real life when tiny authority becomes personality fuel. When Ethan finally reached her, things somehow became even stranger. Not because she apologized, she didn't, but because she apparently spoke like this entire arrangement had always belonged to the HOA in spirit. According to neighborhood logic, patios visible from common areas were community-adjacent assets, meaning they could occasionally support resident engagement experiences. Bro, hearing that nearly broke Ethan's brain. Community-adjacent assets. That sounded less like neighborhood policy and more like somebody desperately trying to justify entitlement using business buzzwords. But here's where things shifted. Because during the conversation, Ethan learned invitations had already gone out, catering had been loosely discussed, neighbors expected access, and Melissa had been bragging online about hosting the biggest HOA mixer of the year. And suddenly Ethan realized something. If people were this confident about using his patio without permission, what exactly stopped him from using it first? The moment Ethan realized nobody planned to back down, something quietly shifted in him. Up until then, he had still been operating under normal person logic, explain the misunderstanding, point out the obvious problem, maybe force an awkward apology, move on with life. But this? This was different. For Melissa Crane and the HOA social committee weren't confused. They weren't apologetic. They were committed. Worse, they seemed genuinely offended that Ethan had the audacity to question why strangers were about to occupy his backyard like it had accidentally entered public domain. That level of entitlement honestly felt unreal because the confidence kept escalating every time someone opened their mouth. By Friday morning, Ethan started noticing neighbors casually referencing the mixer like it had already happened. One guy walking his dog cheerfully mentioned he heard Ethan's patio had great sunset vibes and thanked him for hosting. Hosting. Bro, hearing that word after literally never agreeing to anything would have sent most people into orbit. Another neighbor asked whether guests should bring folding chairs since space might get tight. Tight. Ethan stood there mentally calculating how 40 people plus snacks, drinks, HOA gossip, and random folding furniture would basically turn his backyard into a suburban survival experiment. Then things somehow got worse. Someone dropped off disposable tablecloths near his fence. Someone else taped directional arrows leading toward his side gate. And by noon, Ethan discovered Melissa had posted community updates describing the event as a celebration of shared neighborhood generosity, casually framing him as some enthusiastic volunteer neighbor opening his space for resident bonding. That part genuinely blew his mind because now there was social pressure involved. If Ethan canceled publicly, suddenly he risked looking like the neighborhood villain, the grumpy homeowner ruining community fun. That's exactly how manipulative situations work in real life, by the way. Nobody asks first. They create momentum, make backing out socially uncomfortable, and assume embarrassment will do the rest. But buried inside all that irritation, Ethan noticed something weirdly important. Melissa never signed contracts. 5 never collected money. Never officially rented anything. She had simply claimed his patio and expected reality to cooperate. And the more Ethan thought about it, the more one ridiculous idea started forming. If his patio was apparently open for scheduling now, then technically, there was nothing stopping him from scheduling it too. By late Friday afternoon, Ethan sat staring at his laptop, rereading neighborhood Facebook comments hyping up Saturday's HOA social like it was some historic event, while a completely different plan slowly started taking shape in his head. And honestly, the moment he committed to it, everything changed. By Friday evening, Ethan stopped thinking like someone defending himself and started thinking like someone watching an absurd game unfold in slow motion. If the HOA wanted to pretend his patio functioned like reservable neighborhood property, then fine, he decided to follow that ridiculous logic all the way to its breaking point. After a few hours of scrolling local community boards, event rental groups, and neighborhood hobby pages, Ethan posted something simple: private outdoor patio available Saturday afternoon for a small paid gathering, fully furnished, sunset seating included. Nothing misleading. Nothing dramatic. Just technically true information about property he actually owned. And somehow, within hours, interest appeared faster than expected. What genuinely blew Ethan's mind was how quickly the situation spiraled after that. A local photography club looking for a scenic meetup locked in a time slot with a deposit, excited about quiet outdoor space and natural lighting. Suddenly, there was paperwork, confirmations, and actual people legally expecting access. Meanwhile, Melissa kept posting HOA updates like victory was inevitable, completely unaware she had accidentally walked herself toward a collision course with reality. Six and bro, the tension at this point felt unbelievable because Saturday morning was getting dangerously close. Saturday arrived with the kind of strange tension that makes even quiet neighborhoods feel cinematic. Ethan woke up weirdly calm, which honestly surprised him because 24 hours earlier he had been equal parts irritated and confused. But now there was structure. The photography group had confirmed arrival times, folding stools were neatly arranged, coffee and pastries had been delivered, and the patio actually looked professional. Peaceful, organized, booked. In other words, occupied by people who had permission to be there. That detail mattered more than anything. Around mid-morning, the first sign of incoming chaos appeared. Cars slowed near Ethan's house. Neighbors walked by glancing toward the patio with curious little smiles, clearly expecting some HOA social masterpiece to materialize any minute. A couple even carried store-bought snacks like proud contributors to a party Ethan never agreed to host. That part genuinely made him pause because it suddenly hit him how many people had been confidently invited into this situation without ever questioning it. Then, right as members of the photography club started unpacking cameras and greeting each other, Ethan spotted Melissa marching down the sidewalk holding clipboards with the unmistakable energy of someone expecting complete control. And honestly, the look on her face the second she noticed strangers already using the patio felt like the calm before absolute disaster. Melissa froze mid-step, her confident HOA energy cracking almost instantly as confusion turned into visible panic. Ethan could practically see the gears breaking in real time while cameras clicked behind him and neighbors awkwardly slowed to watch. Bro, this is where everything exploded. If you think this gets messy, you are not ready for what happened next, because karma showed up fast.